Cloud. All right. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to episode number 5 of Orangepillers. Thank you for being here and for listening. If you haven't listened before, every month, Pavao and I hang out for a few hours. We talk about concepts related to Bitcoin, and we share our orange pilling stories and just, stuff we're learning. So if you enjoy the show, you can support it by sending some sats to the QR code in the YouTube description, if that's where you're listening. Those funds will go to help Orange Pill Rab, an island in Croatia where Pavao is from. Or you can listen on Fountain, which is a really badass value for value podcasting platform. And it lets you stream sats while you listen. It lets you boost sats. And I think the coolest thing, it also pays you to listen. I think Fountain's the only platform that actually pays creators and pays listeners for the value they add to the platform. So that's where to go for that. And it's Bitcoin Stoa if you're looking it up on there. Val, how's life? Thanks for being here.
Hi, Nick. Life is excellent here. The weather is getting a little bit colder, so it's not searing hot as it was in August. So life is good.
Beautiful. And you have a seminar with Safety this afternoon, correct?
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Starting in a couple of hours. So we do 2 seminars every week. For 2 years already. So
2 seminars a week? I didn't know about this. So tell me, let's start there. I'm actually legitimately curious. What are they? How do people sign up, find out about them?
Well, whoever wants to really dive deep into the economics of Bitcoin, it's more focused on the economics and on the monetary properties of Bitcoin and then what's going on in the world, basically, and how will that pertain to Bitcoin. We do 2 seminars every week, live seminars. You can sign up on safety.com membership, and it's a great group of people who, diverse backgrounds, people who are really very, very hardcore Bitcoiners, and we are
my kind of people.
Your kind of people, and even this in the bear market, the podcast has pretty good numbers. Very, very hardcore people are listening to it, regardless of the price. They are all buyers of last resort.
There you go.
And so we have a blast 2 times a week. We also have guests on the seminar, various different guests from the Bitcoin space and some from outside of Bitcoin space. And so we produce the Bitcoin Standard podcast out of it. So I would gladly invite everyone who is listening to this to check out the Bitcoin Standard podcast. It has a lot of very interesting, valuable content there.
Powerful. Yeah, one of my favorite things to see online when I see it written is what bear market are you talking about? Bitcoin's been in a bull market since 2009. It has to slow down at some point. I love the analogy from Sailor where it's the sound barrier in aeronautics is the speed at which, if you exceed it, shit falls apart, right? Like shit explodes. And I think probably, if you look at the annual compound growth rate of Bitcoin since it first started, we're going pretty fast, right? And it's I feel like these what are known as bear markets are really just ways to okay, let's slow down, make sure all the parts are working, build a bit more robustness so that when we break the next sound barrier, shit doesn't fall apart. And I think it's actually it doesn't matter what I think, but my sense is that this is very healthy and it's necessary. And obviously each one of those periods is kind of enveloped by its own. The world is not, Bitcoin doesn't exist in a vacuum. So it seems like this one, the world is in a very interesting place that it hasn't been before. And whether that's institutions and governments starting to really take notice of this in this period, I don't know what happens. This at a certain point, Parker Lewis is saying gradually then suddenly. It seems like we're getting close to the suddenly moment, but maybe that's just the bias of a Bitcoiner. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very hard to say. I was listening to someone talking about this, and he said that you are feeling like nothing is really happening, and then just yeah, as you said, suddenly it happens. But the like until the last moment before the suddenly happens, you are not really aware that something huge is going to happen. So yeah, right now, the world is kind of getting into this recession. There is like, again, this sort of fear in the, or you know notices of fear in the people's minds. How are they going to survive this winter? Are we gonna get energy shortages and whatnot? And yeah, so I mean, my bias is that we are going to just kind of go through it, and that nothing really huge is going to happen. On the other hand, like, already huge things happened just in the last couple of years. So nobody could have predicted that we would have almost worldwide lockdown because of the airborne disease or whatever. And yeah, it's really hard to say, but yeah, the times are interesting. And I'm very insulated from the stress about everything because of Bitcoin, of course. So I kind of know that everything is going to be all right at the end of the story. But yeah, I can understand that many people are kind of stressed out and scared. They're unsure what's going to happen. But I think that, yeah, humanity just has to go through this phase. It's we are gonna grow kind of stronger and more capable out of it. That's my viewpoint.
I agree. And it's like, the only certainty is uncertainty.
Yeah.
Although I think the one actual true concrete certainty is Bitcoin, right? There's nothing else that I'm more certain about than Bitcoin. Because software doesn't really, it's not, this shit doesn't change, right? It's a constant. And, as the world changes and human emotion takes over with fear and greed and anger, whatever it might be, that projects onto the fiat marker of what people are willing to pay for their Bitcoin. It doesn't actually change Bitcoin, right? And I think as Bitcoiners, we understand this. I don't think most of the world understands this. Like, the vast majority doesn't yet. And yeah, I think, I was listening to a really interesting podcast yesterday by Robert Breedlove, where he had someone on. I can't remember the gentleman's name. I think he was Italian. And they were talking about predator-prey dynamics in nature. And I found the conversation super fascinating because basically they were talking about how there are these differential equations that explain predator-prey dynamics in nature. Like, for the example they gave was, there was a ton of fish in this Italian fishery, and then the sharks got out of control and ate all the fish. And when the prey was gone, the predators all died because there was simply no more prey. They couldn't reach an equilibrium that was stable because it was just out of control. And then they peel that back and use that metaphor within the world of humans, right? Predator-prey dynamics within the socioeconomic realm. And it was just so fascinating because in nature, predators use camouflage to deceive their prey, right? They hide, or they do these things to get access to the prey. And when they were talking about it, they were basically like, well, predators in the socioeconomic realm are the bankers and the politicians, right? And the prey are the people that they wield control over. And the camouflage they use is this weird, it's either a moral camouflage, right? Like, we must do this for the best of everyone, therefore we must steal from you. Or intellectual camouflage, where it's like, oh, this is so complicated, you can't possibly understand it, so we're just going to tell you a CPI number and pretend like that explains everything. It's fine. And this notion that these humans are using camouflage to deceive everyone into stealing all their shit. And they're getting to the point now where they've stolen so much that the predator, like, things are starting to, like, we're getting into system collapse because the predators have simply over predated the prey. And this notion that the one thing that disrupts that is inviolable property. Like, if people have property that cannot be stolen, there is no longer, you disrupt that traditional predator-prey dynamic. And I just found it super fascinating because it's like, the insight that I got was the more humans stray from the laws of nature, the more we create suffering and just a mess. And fiat is this distinct separation of the laws of nature. And Bitcoin is a return to the laws of nature, of like conservation of energy and everything, really everything based on energy. And, a lot of people talk about, oh, look at what humanity's done in the past 100 years. Like, we're so amazing. What do you mean fiat is parasitic to humanity? It's like, we did all that shit in spite of fiat. Like, we did all that, even though there was this giant parasite that weaseled into civilization. Imagine if we got rid of the parasite, how humanity would do. And I think that it just made me so happy to know that we now have a tool that cannot be stopped, that will unlock a level of human flourishing that we've never seen before. I mean, obviously this has existed in the past, right? You look at the sound money standards in the past and the beautiful stone buildings and churches that were built, like this low time preference lifestyle and architecture and the way of living in terms of health. And like, when we return to that in this time with this technology, this technological landscape, dude, it's going to be glorious. And the parasites are fucked.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I see it on myself. Like, my quality of life is simply just steadily improving. Just this morning I was getting a haircut, and I told my hairdresser, she was talking about how, World Economic Forum is, planning the carbon footprint app, and they are saying that basically the Corona lockdowns were just a social exercise for climate lockdowns and so on. And I just finished. Yeah, I mean, you can listen to her and so on. Agreed with her, but then I said that Bitcoin is the solution, and she was like, yeah. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, yeah. And they said, no, just Bitcoin, don't worries. The other cryptocurrency, Ethereum, is like already captured by these people. So
crucial
Bitcoin
distinction, so important.
It's so important. It's the only thing that's really neutral, decentralized. It's a protocol that nobody can mess around with. And she said, yeah, well, when this, after September, she's gonna come to my office and basically start the Bitcoin journey. I didn't even have to spend a lot of time explaining how it works or whatever.
Beautiful.
Because people are getting to the point where, and I think this is going to be even more pronounced, where they are just looking for a solution to this invisible threat that's surrounding them, but they cannot really pinpoint. We had a protest here in Croatia a couple of weeks ago. She also told me that she was on the protest, my hairdresser, and she said that, and I asked her, so how was the protest? Did you accomplish something? Because basically they were protesting there wasn't really one reason why the protest was here. It was because of the Corona hysteria and the unfortunate increase in mortality that more and more people are seeing. We kind of suspect what was the reason for that, even though the mainstream media is really kind of shut tight. Nobody's really discussing that.
It's so obvious.
It's so obvious, how what's going on, and then the inflation, so economic uncertainty. So they were basically protesting the government, kind of trying to get the prime minister to resign and for the whole government to resign. But the problem is, like, who's gonna kind of take the place of the prime minister? The whole system is rotten to the core. So the only really effective way to act upon it is to take your personal responsibility and get on the Bitcoin standard. And by doing that, you just improve your own life, and subsequently, as the second, third order effect, you improve everything else by starving the states. Just they don't have the seigniorage revenue coming from the money printing. They don't have you know, they cannot censor you, they cannot capital control you, and so on, and your life gets better because your money increases in purchasing power. So that's really the message that I think more and more people will embrace. So it's like, it's almost like dual world, dual purpose for all of this. Like on one hand, it's getting more crazy, it's getting more intense. On the other hand, because of that, people will be more likely to listen to us Bitcoiners, to really, take their life in their own hands. And I know it's like, it's not easy. It's still, I mean, we Bitcoiners, we are kind of steeped into this world of Bitcoin and what's going on. But 99% of people just don't know any. I mean, they heard about it, but like their level of understanding is literally just barely scratching the surface. So, but time will do its own thing. So many more people will wake up, start using it. They will get their lives improved. As I said, I got my life improved tremendously, and I know that the improvement is just going to continue over time. So yeah,
It's just patience at this point,
just
really.
patience. Yeah.
And I think, the boiling frog metaphor is a really good one, right? Turns out for like 50 years, claiming that there was 2% inflation was an okay rate of temperature increase where the frog didn't jump out, right? People didn't really panic or freak out. And, it seems like the temperature on the oven just got cranked up a shitload and is going to be cranked up more. So the idea that more and more people will be jumping out of that boiling cauldron because it's getting so hot and so obvious, right? The temperature increase differential is so obvious now that people are ready. And I think really what Bitcoin, when you opt into Bitcoin, you opt out of fiat slavery, which I deeply believe is a true term to its core now. I used to think that was more sensationalistic. Like I believed it as a Bitcoiner. Dude, it's fucking true. It's so true. You opt out of fiat slavery, and really what you're doing, that the act of opting into Bitcoin is really, I think, the fundamental act of claiming your freedom as a sovereign human. That is what it is, right? And adults don't need to be given permission, right? Men and women don't need to be given permission. Boys and girls need to be given permission. Boys and girls play fiat games, which is high time preference. Men and women don't need to be given permission. They understand that they have this innate sovereignty, and all they need to do actually is just claim it, right? It's there. You only get it if you claim it. To claim it requires effort and energy. And in order to understand that effort and energy is worth spending, you must feel enough pain to say, wow, I need to do this. And yeah, I think people are going to be forced to understand. That's really what gives me this closure, that it's just patience, right? It's just being ready and making sure people know. This is my mission now when I talk to people, is not actually to tell them about Bitcoin or convince them about anything. It's simply to make them aware that when you're ready, I've been looking into this for a while, I'm here to help. And you don't need to understand how everything works. I really am using the electricity metaphor a lot these days because I think it's important. This woman I met that I'm spending time with, she's kind of I'm trying not to scare her off by talking about Bitcoin all the time, but I am nudging these little subtle touch points, and she gets it fundamentally. Like, she's a Bitcoiner to the core, she just doesn't know it yet.
Yep.
And what I realized is money creates this deep trauma in so many people because it fucks so many people over. Like, my family was deeply affected in a negative way by money. Her family was as well. Therefore, money is not something we like to talk about because it's dirty and nasty. But it's not money, it's fiat, right? And it's like we have to shed away the misunderstanding of money and fiat in order to clear space so that people can start to learn about sound, fair money. And it's funny because she uses the term, she teaches a bunch of women about just how to like come back into their power on many realms. And she uses the term monergy. And I love it because it really is, she's really attuned with the energetics of life. And, Marty Band always says it's all about the energy, baby. Yep. And he talks about it in one context, but really that's what it is. Socioeconomic energy is a fundamental piece of life in order for us to coordinate. It's been sort of had this dark shadow drawn on it by fiat. But once we get rid of that and we really rediscover the beauty of fair money, which is monergy that we use between one another, it's going to be wonderful, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I'd love to pick your brain on time preference, because I think that I'm seeing that term apply to so many things. I was listening to a John Vallis podcast the other day of a guy who does permaculture and homesteading, and everything he was saying in terms of like the struggles he's going through to, like, you know, homeschooling is a challenge, permaculture is a challenge, growing your food is a challenge. All of these things anchored back into time preference. So if someone, you know, if you mention time preference to someone, how are you explaining that? And maybe let's riff on that, because I think there's so many applications to that that I think are worth diving into, and relate to the foundation that at the bedrock of society, if we have high time preference money, everything we do will be coordinated and oriented around high time preference fundamentals. And the minute we swap that for low time preference, it's like everyone puts a different set of glasses on, sees the world in a new way. So what is time preference, and how does that relate to, like, what does the term mean, and how do you think about that concept?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, since I work with Seyfedin, I know that he is really very, very focused on that term, time preference. And it's both like, it's economic term on one side. On the other side, it's like, you can encapsulate even some religious aspects of human experience, spiritual aspects. They all come down to basically your time preference. I mean, the main difference between humans and other forms of life that are at least known to us is that humans have a concept of time. They are not just living or are just aware of the present moment. They do have a concept of future, concept of past, and they can basically conceive, you know, that they can go against their nature, against their instincts, in order to achieve something in the future. So they can, like, if the animal is hungry, or if the animal is ready to mate, they cannot really work against that instinct. They will just, you know, go and get it. Well, human beings, they can basically overcome this natural body urges and basically to achieve something that might not even be physical in nature. There are people who are ready to do insane things for the ideal, for the idea. So all of that is to say that time preference is really about what is the capacity of human being, and everyone has a different capacity. Of course, some people have stronger ability to lower their time preference, some people have less ability to lower their time preference, but the fact is that every single human being can lower their time preference, which is just to say that whatever you wish to have, whatever you wish to do, whatever you wish to consume, it's always going to be more valuable for you if it's closer to the present. If I offer you anything, you know, you are more like, it's like you're going to value more if I give it, whatever it is, to you right now, rather than in the future. And the farther away in the future it is, the less value you're ascribing to it naturally, right? So if I'm going to offer you, you know, 1 BTC today or 1 BTC in 10 years, you know, 1 BTC in 10 years is going to be massively more valuable, you know, in 10 years, but you have 10 years to kind of live, right? There is a lot that can happen in these 10 years. So
Right.
naturally you will want to have 1 BTC right now, right? So the time preference is really influenced by the money that we use. And another thing that only human beings do, it's interesting thing to think about, only human beings use money, right? Other life forms, they directly exchange, if they do any exchange, if they just don't take from each other whatever they want, or they just live kind of programmed symbiosis with one another. With humans, we have all these different, desires and needs that can be satisfied by us specializing, in certain things that we do very good, right? So because we are accrue skill set, we accrue capital in whatever we are specializing in, so we can provide that to others with higher efficiency, with lower cost, and so on. And we basically trade that with other people. And because we have the problem of double coincidence of wants in direct exchange, we are using money. We are using medium of exchange to solve this problem. So we are the only creatures here that we know of that use money. And the type of money, the thing that we use as money, and we must remember, we can use anything as money. We can use anything as medium of exchange. And we do use anything as medium of exchange. Like many people use houses as money. They are basically storing their value in the house that they are not using to live in. They are not using house for its utility value. They are just placing their value in the house, so they will exchange it for something else later. So they are effectively using houses, real estate as money. Other things that, throughout
Because
history
money's
has
broken.
been used as
When money
yeah.
breaks, everything has to turn into money.
Exactly.
Or other things, rather.
And it's not just that the money breaks, it's just the form of money that you use, the thing that you use as your medium of exchange will affect your time preference. So in this fiat century that we are currently living in, most people are using fiat government issued money as their medium of exchange. So, and because that money is losing its purchasing power over time, people are becoming more like they are raising their time preference, which means they are discounting the future more, and they are becoming more and more short-term in their thinking, in their behavior. So the faster the money loses its purchasing power, the shorter time frame you will have to plan your life or to just project the future. So like in Venezuela or other countries where you have like 200, 300, 400% per year inflation, basically you are literally losing a fifth of your money every month or so. You are literally,
That's crazy.
Yeah, you cannot even plan a week ahead, right? So you literally have to get to the grocery store immediately when you get your paycheck. So because you just cannot even conceive about anything longer term project, like building a house or whatever. It's just tremendously difficult.
You basically have tunnel vision where the only thing that's important is now, today, because every day I wait is discounting this purchasing power more and more and more. So you're naturally, Munger says, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. The outcome of highly inflationary money is people spend it right away. They have to. They have no choice. They can't save.
Yeah, and then they will buy, like they will use anything else as their money, as their savings. So people who are living in hyperinflationary countries, they are basically they will buy electronics or house appliances or furniture just to keep the money,
just to preserve their purchasing power.
Yeah, just to conserve the purchasing power. And then of course like they will not really discriminate. They will not wait for the best furniture, for the best type of electronics or whatnot. They will just buy whatever they can buy that's like maybe not so high quality. It's like low quality, but it's still better than the rate of decline of their purchasing power if they were holding that purchasing power in their national currency. So you would rather buy some type of furniture or a chair that's losing maybe 20-30% of the value a year. It's better form of money than if you hold your currency that's losing 200% a year. So you see all of this dislocation and all of this mess in the countries that are affected by the very high rates of inflation, very high rates of monetary debasement, but it's also like US or Western countries that have lower rates of inflation, they are also affected by this, just to the lesser extent. So basically, this is why you don't really have this
lesser extent so far. I think one of my favorite things that Parker says is we really like to dissociate and separate places like Venezuela or Turkey or whatever it might be from us, right? In the more civilized Western world, that couldn't happen to us. Actually, they're just at a different place on the curve, right? They are more advanced on the curve, but we are on that curve and we are headed towards that, because that is the math behind fiat. It must get there. There is no, it's a self-terminating system that ends in radical hyperinflation. So I think it's important for everyone to remember, if you're listening to this, like, that's not some different world completely. That's simply a country that has gotten there faster and is where we are approaching. And if you remember that, I think it creates a bit more urgency to really understand money, at least the people that I've talked to. And, just a little nugget. My favorite way of explaining time preference is the classic delay of gratification scenario where you have a kid and you say, I'll give you one cookie right now, or you can forfeit that cookie and you can have 2 cookies tomorrow. And the idea is, if you think tomorrow is going to come, you're not going to die before tomorrow, and you understand that if I'm patient and delay my gratification, I can either eat 1 cookie today or I can have double the amount of cookies if I just wait 24 hours. I think that is like a perfect illustration of time preference, where high time preference is I want the cookie now. Low time preference is I want more cookies tomorrow. Even though I have to wait, I value the 2 cookies more. And I think that's really at its foundation kind of the simple way of explaining that. And everyone is eating their cookies right now. And the thing is like, in Venezuela, you have no choice but to eat your cookies that day, because there might not be any cookies tomorrow. And so it's like you don't actually have the option. The incentive structure determines that you must be high time preference, because that is just what the money is dictating. So
and then when we talk about Bitcoin, so this is the form of money that's basically, we didn't really have this before. Like, even with gold, on the gold standard, you would have some increase in purchasing power, but it was more like it was just preserving your purchasing power over time. Really, it's kind of so even that's much better. But with Bitcoin, we really have fundamentally increase of purchasing power over time, and something that we can really count on and rely on. So,
and verify. That's the big thing.
Exactly. So really, Bitcoin is really, and I know it from my own experience. I know that Bitcoin is working on people's time preference. It's constantly lowering it, right? It's constantly making people think more far ahead in the future, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not. No. It's really a process that needs time. You need to take time. Yeah, needs to marinate. You need, like, basically you need to make some high time preference things while being on a Bitcoin standard, in order to later understand that those were maybe not the best decisions that you could have made, and you are basically integrating that learning again into your thinking about the world and so on. Right now, for example, I am like, my time preference where I can think about the future in more systematic, more planned, more precise way. And the length of the time that I can project in the future is really the length of time since I got of zero, basically, which is 8 years right now. So I have 8 years behind me. I have 8 years of Bitcoin's purchasing power increase experience in the last 8 years. So I can kind of project next 8 years approximately how they are gonna what's gonna happen. It's gonna
Yeah, you
be
have
two
historical
halvings.
data, basically.
Based on the historical data, and I can say, oh, okay, it's not probably gonna happen exactly as it did in the last 8 years, but discounted by whatever 20 or 50%, however much you kind of want to discount your projection in the future, but you still can make projection in the future. You can still plan your future. You can still think about, for example, sometimes in the future I want to save up and buy a nice house, right? With very nice furniture, very, very nice, maybe a pool or whatever. But I'm able to, like, more and more I'm able to basically literally plan that in the timeline of my giving my income, giving my other expenses, giving my savings rate, and given the projected Bitcoin's increase in purchasing power. I can see a very coherent, logical, mathematical way that I can, buy this house in less than 8 years, and in meanwhile having very high quality of life while saving for that house, for example. So this is a place where more and more Bitcoiners are getting to, and as more and more people get off zero, right? Once they start their journey off of the fiat standard, and once they start switching to the Bitcoin standard, they will get that as well. And the thing is, other people's time preference affects your time preference. So the more people get orange pilled, the more people start to lower their time preference, you will get more easier time to lower your time preference as well. Like, for example, right now I have some trouble. For example, like, I would really I'm looking for things that are higher quality. I'm willing to pay more for a product or a service that's much higher quality than usual fiat services and products are, but I'm having trouble to even find it.
Right.
It's very hard to, because more and more people are kind of caught up in the fiat standard. So basically they are not doing the level of quality work that Bitcoiners are, who are kind of growing into the low time preference thinking. Like, it's just different. Like, your work will be different if you are stressed out, if you are scared about the future, if you are not sure if like your savings can't cover even a month of expenses, if you, God forbid, lose your job. Like, losing the job is huge issue in people's lives, because nobody has savings. Everyone has very, very high time preference, very short term thinking, just like almost like an animal, right?
Yeah, it's like survival mode.
So this is, again, as more people get out of this survival mode, as more people liberate themselves and escape slavery and get onto the Bitcoin standard, for us Bitcoiners, it's going to be easier to kind of conduct our business, because you will have more like-minded people who are who you can trade with, who you can work with.
More options.
More options. So
that was really well said.
It's going to happen. It's going to take time, but at least the journey is excellent, because we are benefiting while we are on the journey. It's not like we have to suffer for I don't know how many years until the world gets hyper Bitcoinized.
Right.
No, we can individually just switch on the Bitcoin standard and enjoy the benefits of it, while the others are kind of catching up. So
yeah, it's like it's all micro adjustments, right? Like, the way something that came to mind when you're talking about that is, like, our old fiat self is high time preference, and each decision we make with a deeper consideration of the economic choices, as soon as we pick a lower time preference option, we've essentially killed a tiny part of our fiat selves, right? We've killed a tiny part of our high time preference selves. And over time, it takes a long time to kill that whole thing, right? Because it's been so deeply ingrained. That is literally our reality, right? It's like that old saying where there's the old fish and asks the two young fish, hey guys, how's the water? And they're like, what the fuck is water? It's like we're so in it, we don't even know. Um, and it's really those micro decisions that we make every day, taking a deeper consideration to it, valuing the future more than the present. That's how we sort of get, that's kind of like what the 8-year thing is. It's like slowly molding yourself to this new lens that you're seeing the world through. And, it's so funny because the fiat mindset, high time preference is, I don't have money for this, but I'm just going to put it on credit and I'll worry about it later. Right? Like that's the classic trade-off, I think, in fiat is fiat high time preference is I'll use credit. I will pull from the future, even though I don't know if I'm going to have that in the future, but I'm going to pull from it anyway and owe someone. Whereas the low time preference mindset is I'm going to save so that I can buy this, right? If I don't have the money for it right now, I actually can't, I'm not just going to pull from my future, not knowing what the future holds. And, this carrot of cheap debt is such a nasty, sneaky little thing that tricks people, right? Oh, you can borrow $10,000 at whatever interest rate, like a lower rate of interest than what we're printing money. So we're literally going to pay you. We're going to bribe you to suck yourself deeper into slavery. And it's so sinister and it's so messed up when you act, like once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. And every decision I made was considered much more deeply, which is more energy, right? So you have to understand the value of those decisions in order to invest the energy in actually thinking about them. And I think right now, when you're in survival mode, you're not investing energy in shit. You're literally just trying to survive. And I think part of the fiat Ferris wheel is keeping people in that survival mode so that they don't have the space to take care of themselves, which means they're even deeper in survival mode, right? And that's like the same thing holds true with health. It's like, well, instead of, spending the time to take care of myself by picking good food, I'm just going to buy this shit food right now because I just need to eat, right? And high time preference and low time preference shows up in so many, like once I started looking at health through the lens of time preference, relationships, right? I'm just going to try and find someone to have sex with right now, or I'm just going to watch porn. That's high time preference. I want the cookie right now. I don't want to wait. Spending a lot of time finding a suitable mate and investing in a relationship, that is low time preference.
Yeah.
And you see this with Bitcoiners, right? Bitcoiners are engaging in long-term relationships. They are becoming more self-reliant with their food, right? Like when you plant I have fruit trees on a lot that I have in Ottawa. That's some low time preference shit. Like I spent so much time and energy caring for those trees. I got like one apple from one of the trees, right? It's like, I didn't even know if I was going to get that apple. So, this notion that we just have to really understand what's at stake, and really internalize this notion that I'm going to view my life through a low time preference lens because I value the future more than getting something instantly today. And it's a process, right? It's not like you flick the switch. Although I've had some people that flick that switch pretty damn quick where they're like, whoa, okay, I got to make some changes. But it does take time. It takes time to unwind these things. It takes time to invest the energy into relationships and into food and into health and all that kind of stuff. And, it's almost like when you internalize the Bitcoin mindset, when you opt into Bitcoin, you have adopted something that will accelerate that transition in a radical way. I think that's the big thing, right? If you're not opting into Bitcoin, you simply can't adopt the lens that allows you to take that mindset, right? Like fiat will always keep you in that mind, even if you know this concept exists and you want to adopt a lower time preference life. If you are in fiat, you cannot, right? It's like, being a fish and trying to climb a fucking tree. No, you cannot. It's not going to work, right? The fundamental incentive structure is going against you. You're swimming upstream. It's going to be really hard. And even if you just start by adopting Bitcoin in a very small way, acquire some sats, learn about money, this is the initiation into beginning that transition. And that transition results in such a better life, right? Yep. It really, for me, I can speak for only myself, but also for the people around me who I've witnessed this in, they're way better off. They are adults, right? They're no longer children. It's like adopting a low time preference mindset is part of the initiation from boy and girl to man and woman. And there's a lot of boys and girls running around today like crazy people, mostly because fiat has trapped them in that uninitiated state, whereas adulthood requires you to almost like punch through the barrier of fiat bullshit, and claim your freedom. And that is actually like what it's all about. When you claim your freedom, you are becoming an adult, you adopt low time preference, and you see your life in a radically different way. And people that are struggling and suffering, I don't even think they know that that's the problem. But once you adopt that lens, it's like the orange world is so much brighter and so much more hopeful, even despite all the mayhem going on and mayhem that will ensue. And on top of that, once you connect with other people who are in that mindset, it accelerates it even more, right? Like surround yourself with low time preference people, and you don't even have to try. It just happens, like you said. And the opportunities for Bitcoiners to develop products and services that are actually good is unreal, right? It's like every single service and product out there has a giant opportunity to be reinvented based on a Bitcoin mindset. This desk that I have this computer on is a low time preference. It was made by humans in Ottawa. They welded it, they painted it. It's real wood. This is an heirloom piece of furniture. This will outlive me. And we just don't have that kind of stuff. But I think Bitcoin will usher in a new era of beautiful things, beautiful home. Like even my brother's in construction. He always talks about, these homes now are built like total shit, right? They're built terribly. They're rushed. They just want to get them out there and sell them. Whereas like homes used to be built well. Homes used to be built to last 100 years. It took a lot longer to build. It took a lot more energy. And it's like everything is just so high time preference now, and it's just shit. It's like, wow, the bar is so low. I'm excited. I'm here for it.
Yeah, for sure. And even those like these people who are trying to build high quality stuff, but are still not on a Bitcoin standard. They are still on a fiat standard, doing their best to kind of keep it going. Like when they get Orangepillers, when they get on a Bitcoin standard, it's going to be even better. So it's not like we have to reinvent the whole world. We have to reinvent the wheel. It's not like Bitcoiners have to learn how to do it. It's just that everyone who is already, an expert in whatever, there's so many things that human beings are capable of producing, marvels of technology and so on. But it's just going to be so much better when we have sound money, when we all have low or continuously lower and lower time preference. We're probably never going to get to zero time preference because we are still mortal beings, right? Yes. We still have the concept of life and death. So, but still, it's going to be so much better. I just see it as a continual improvement. Seyfried likes to say that he sees the process of he doesn't really like the idea of fiat collapsing. It's not like something is going to collapse, like literally like a house that's collapsing, that's breaking down. It's more like upgrading a software, like upgrading operating system. So basically, you are just, when you decide that you want to upgrade your money operating system, you can do it right now without asking anyone for permission. And when you do so just think about it. When you upgrade to the Bitcoin standard, you do not, your demand for fiat, your demand for bank to create money, as it creates money when it lends money, right? So your demand for credit goes down. And this means that each Bitcoiner who adopts the Bitcoin standard is basically demonetizing debt, right? And monetizing hard asset, monetizing energy, basically, right?
Right.
And so what happens is that over time, fiat is just going to like, just imagine a house of cards. Like one card is a demand for fiat, demand for debt, demand for loans, and the other is supply of loans. So each time someone adopts the Bitcoin standard, he literally takes out one demand and one supply. So it's like orderly disassembling this house of cards,
right.
One person at a time. And as we are doing this, Bitcoin economy is just slowly growing. The number of people who are participating in the value of their cash balance, so the value, their purchasing power, right? Because when you start going on the Bitcoin standard, most people will just get some, a percent or two, just to test it out, right? But over time, this 1 or 2% are going to grow like in a full, and probably 100% of their balance sheet, as Bitcoin is monetizing. So wherever they start, they're going to end up fully on a Bitcoin standard. And at that point, you just don't need that anymore. Your mind is in a different place. You don't have to pull from the future. You understand that future is uncertain. You understand that life is much better, much easier, much more peaceful. There is no financial stress if you just spend from the past and work, towards something that you want to buy, and you still don't have enough money to buy it. So, and you are just then learning all these things that people have kind of known, during the gold standard era. They knew the value of saving, the value of work, the proof of work idea, or you are much more satisfied, much happier with whatever you are purchasing, you are spending the money on, if you have worked for it.
Yes.
Rather than you just get into debt and you now immediately drive whatever,
because you deserve it, right? It's like
you didn't deserve it, and
it's kind of like you're stealing. Credit is stealing from yourself.
Exactly. You are stealing from yourself, from your own future. So it's kind of sounds very esoteric, very out there, but it's really practical. And the practicality of it, you really recognize it the moment you step into the Bitcoin standard. Because I know for myself, I did not really understand that my prior fiat life was that there was something bad about it.
Same.
I wasn't really stressed about money, but I didn't really, I couldn't really conceive of the future. Like whenever I would think about anything farther than a couple of months away, I would just don't want to think about it.
Right.
Because it was just like a fog of war, like in video games. You just cannot see further than whatever.
Like the mirror is dusty. The mirror is so dusty.
The window is dusty.
Yeah.
So you are avoiding even thinking about the future, and then something hits you, right? Any unexpected, scenario can throw you off so much that you are basically forced to, go into survival mode. So most people live like that. But with Bitcoin, like the more time you are on a Bitcoin standard, the farther away you can kind of look in the future. The clearer the windshield.
Yeah, it's like you're wiping little layers of dust. Like there's so many layers of dust that have collected. Every time you make a low time preference decision, or even engage with the process of thinking about a decision deeper, you're kind of wiping off like a couple little dust particles, and you keep going and you keep going, and all of a sudden shit gets real clear, because you're like, oh, that's what reality is. That's how I get clarity of knowing like what I want to do with my life and how to get there. And it's almost like that process of wiping the mirror is this perpetual iterative transformation that you are incentivized to engage with once you get off zero. And the inevitable end is that you end up with a very clear mirror. You're never going to get all the dust off, right? Like in our lifetimes, probably there's going to be fiat particles that still stick on the mirror. But if the rate at which you're removing the dust is higher than the rate at which the dust is collecting, you are going in the right direction, right? This is like, this is a big thing with health. Metaphor I use is like, if the rate at which you're improving your health exceeds, your rate of healing exceeds the rate of you doing things to kind of have consequences on your health, you're going in the right direction. You are becoming healthy. But if your rate of dis-ease, if your rate of damage is exceeding your rate of healing, you are going in the opposite direction. And so I think the inversion point for time preference is Bitcoin, right? The inversion point is you have changed the game, and the game is ushering you and nudging you, whether you realize it or not, towards getting more dust off than there is dust collecting. And then you can help other people realize how good it is when you fucking get that dust off, because it's so sticky for some people, right? The people who it's stickiest for are the people who are benefiting the most from not seeing the future, from not seeing clearly, right? This is like another thing with quote unquote healthcare professionals, is like when your salary depends on you not getting clarity on the truth, it's kind of a tough situation. So you're either just going to experience so much pain that you realize you have to take the dust off, or you can be curious enough to start wiping away some of that dust. And yeah, it's really what a magical thing it is.
Definitely.
What a totally revolutionary thing on the idea that Bitcoin, this piece of code that Satoshi created, can literally have such a profound impact on the individual and collective psychology of humans is so trippy to think of. And obviously these conversations can't be had with many people, which is why I appreciate our conversations so much, but it's like, it's happening. We don't even have to do anything and it's happening. Like, you can't make this omelet back into the eggs. It's not, you can't do it. So it's happening. It's like, how can we do our part to accelerate it in ourselves and in others? And how can we just help lay stones on this bridge for people to go from slavery into freedom? And it's scary, right? Freedom is scary. Health, I see this in health all the time. The notion that in order to achieve good health, you must take radical responsibility for your experience is super scary, because when you no longer have things to blame it on, it's like scary to look in the mirror when you're fucking up. But you have to get there eventually. So I think it's really this wonderful thing. And the way I see it is like, the reason I stopped working on the health network and went full-time into Bitcoin, like full dedication, is like, the health problem is a derivative of high time preference money. Exactly. That's it. There's nothing else to say. If we adopt low time preference money, people immediately take a low time preference to health, which is the only way to get healthy. So it's like, it's an economic revolution, it's a health revolution, it's a social revolution. I don't have enough fingers to keep going, but it's like pretty cool.
yeah, definitely. And like, I always have to plug in my shameless shilling of the full Bitcoin standard.
Do it, dude. There should be no shame. You should do that with pride incessantly, because I can speak from experience. That is a super powerful book to just nudge people. That book has taken so much dust off my mirror, and will take so much dust off other people's mirrors, that like, we need to be frisbeeing those like chiclets to everyone.
Yep. Yeah. And also, like, I was I was reading this couple of other days and listening to Bitcoin Tina. He was he apparently he said that he sold half of his Bitcoin for fiat, because he sees this economic kind of downturn. He has bearish outlook, basically.
Interesting.
And this is,
I'll buy it from him.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, this is a guy who spent the bull market, as many Bitcoiners know. He was really kind of yelling at people in this clubhouse rooms and Twitter spaces that, like, call them idiots, that they are not getting what Bitcoin is, and so on and so forth. So now he sold half of it. Well, I think that basically, so I was listening to this Twitter space the other day, and they were like all discussing about how to position themselves right now. Should you continue dollar cost averaging now, or should you hold US dollars, because dollar index is growing right now? Should you do this? Should you do that? What should be your allocation?
Sounds exhausting.
Should you rebalance your portfolio? Let's say you hold 80% Bitcoin and 20% fiat, and then should you rebalance it every month or every quarter or every day? Like, how often? And then what's the tax implications? All of this. And I was just listening to it, and I thought, I mean, guys, just just drop fiat completely.
Yeah.
You will get to the level of peace. Like, I think if Bitcoin Tina, if he just took this final plunge, I mean, he said that he was essentially more than 90% Bitcoin, but I think this last piece of fiat that he was kind of holding on to, thinking that it's the way to hedge Bitcoin's volatility, if he was just taking this last, step and basically went full all in, I think he would get a click in his head. But
This is how
yeah,
you got to burn your hand on the stove sometimes to learn the lesson.
exactly. But I just wanted to say that my experience, like as someone who is on 100% Bitcoin standard, even in this super bearish, bear market conditions, Bitcoin dropping literally every month for last, since the beginning of the year, almost every month. I mean, I literally have zero fears about the future, about the near-term future, mid-term future, long-term future. No, like someone would think that basically that someone who holds on Bitcoin only, like when you see this chart in the last 6 months.
Yeah, they're like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
Are you okay? Or okay? No, I'm not only I'm okay, I'm just, I'm projecting peace to everyone else, and it's so tremendous. It's hard to explain if you didn't try it. It's almost like trying to explain to someone what's the smell of a peony flower. If you never smell the peony flower, you just there is no words to explain the
Yes.
feeling you have when you're on a full Bitcoin standard. Because like, yes, like the only thing that changes really is that you just won't make larger purchases right now, and you will be more like,
You'll be more careful with your spending too. This is a good thing.
more careful. Like, you will usually pass on the opportunity to spend. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to spend anything. Like 2 days ago, we were on we went to 3 dinners in the last 2 weeks, basically. But it's not like, it's hard to explain.
You sharpen your pencil. I've heard that term before.
You're sharpening. It's like you are in a savings mode right now. So that's
yes.
the only difference. Like, you are in a savings mode. All of your time is kind of poured into working and saving, and researching. What are you going to spend it on later? Right. So this is
planning, almost
planning. Yeah. So working, saving, and planning. And so when when the tables turn, when the purchasing power starts to increase, you will not end up FOMOing back to the market because you were holding fiat in order to hedge your volatility. No, the volatility, it doesn't matter. Like, as long as you are spending less than you make, as long as you're running a full 100% zero-based budget, as long as you are debt free, as long as you are working, you generate income, like, it doesn't matter, right? This is why it doesn't matter what's the price of Bitcoin currently doing. It doesn't matter what's your entry point. Because you are still going to have to deal, like, even if you started when Bitcoin was $100, some people say, oh my God, if I only started earlier. No, you would have to deal with the same. It was probably much harder back then because the volatility was even more extreme. So you would have to handle rise from $100 to $1,000 and then drop back to $200 and then rise to $5,000, then drop, then rise to 20,000, then drop.
And the tech was shittier. It was less easy to use, and the education wasn't there. So it's actually easier now.
So it's easier now, but at the end of the day, you have to, like, the task at hand is to learn how to use money that's fundamentally different than fiat. We have gotten used to using low volatility inflationary money. So money that loses purchasing power in a pretty stable, slow way.
Guaranteed.
And yeah, so that's one type of money, and it changes you, like it gets into your habit kind of, you don't even think about it, but this is how most people use fiat money. That's the way fiat money works. To lose its purchasing power slowly. Doesn't happen overnight. And you don't have this short-term huge spikes and volatility that Bitcoin has. Bitcoin is deflationary, highly volatile money. So you have to learn how to use that. And the answer is not to use both. I mean, the answer is no, learn how to use highly volatile deflationary money. It's that you need to learn some skills on how to use it properly so that you can fully embrace the full benefit, because the full benefit of the full Bitcoin standard is literally this. It eliminates stress completely. Because I still when I listen to these Twitter spaces and then people who are talking about Bitcoin's price and the macroeconomic situation and so on, I hear some fear in their voice. I hear some concern. Like there is no concern once you're fully in. There is no concern, not because you are now desperate and you are just stuck. No, you just know that you will always, like, as long as you know how to balance the budget. Again, it's so simple, but I have to constantly repeat it. As long as you know how to balance the budget, and as long as you are assigning your money towards different goals, you are fine. Like the difference is just, yeah, it's I don't know. I have to shill it, but on the other hand, I don't want to throw it down people's throat, because sometimes I feel like,
well, you can't. They have to discover it themselves.
You have to discover it, yeah.
But you can nudge them.
So, but it's really tremendous benefit. So, my recommendation to everyone who is even slightly concerned, like I know that some Bitcoiners who are listening to this, they may be still still hold some amount of fiat that they think it's like kind of responsible thing to do. I heard this argument again. You cannot think like that. You have.
It's a trader mindset, though. It's fundamentally a trader mindset, because it is high time. Basically, what they're saying, because I've seen this too, and I understand it, and I do see the rationality in it based on their perspective. Yeah. The trader high time preference mindset is, I want to optimize my ability to grow my wealth, but I'm going to do that by taking risks, because I can't predict the future, but I'm going to try and predict it as best I can. Good fucking luck. But anyway, it's like, by trying to keep fiat, you are expressing a high time preference, trader minded mindset of trying to capitalize on an opportunity you foresee in the future, which may or may not come. And the fact that you're doing that has inherent risk to it. And the more risk you take, the more anxious you are and the more scared you are, because you are relying on your sense of certainty in an uncertain world. And so I think when you talk about being fully confident and understanding Bitcoin and being on a Bitcoin standard, the result is ease.
Yeah.
And it's like literally, and the stress mindset is dis-ease, because you're taking on risk. You're taking on risk for the sake of capitalizing. Like, it's basically greed-driven risk, probably educated, right? Like, there are people who invest shitloads of energy into understanding the dynamics so that they can capitalize. Most 90% of those people get wrecked. 10% succeed. But either way, choosing that path inherently has stress, anxiety, and fear built in, because unless you can predict the future with perfect fidelity, which no one can, you have an element of anxiety that maybe it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. So I think the trade-off is, I'm going to feel a sense of ease knowing that I'm taking responsibility, maybe forfeiting some additional gains that can come through greed, but the comfort I get knowing I don't have to try and predict the future and take on all this risk to make more money is worth peace of mind. Like, what is peace of mind worth for people? How do they value their health fundamentally? How does Tina value his health?
Yeah,
Because if he
exactly.
valued peace of mind, it wouldn't
Yeah,
be worth the stress of trying to make a couple extra bucks, right?
yeah. And
Well,
I mean, I kind of, again, I'm trying to empathize with people and how they are making these decisions, but it's so I mean, it's so simple at the end of
yeah.
the day. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say.
I think you
Just
said it well. I think you said it. I'm excited to listen to this one again because I don't even know what the fuck we talked about, but I think it was good stuff. um, one thing that I often think now, I have like a small little farm that I go to a couple days a week, and it's very small, but it's
yeah,
growing. And one thing I think on, I go there, it's literally just my mental health practice. I go there, I'm completely alone with nature for 2 days a week. I think that's what keeps me sane. And
okay,
when you plant seeds or you plant small, like I'll plant a small plum tree, the outward expression of what's happening to that tree as it's growing is really not much, right? The
yeah,
external part, let's call it the tip of the iceberg, not much is going on. But I know that underneath the ground, there's a huge amount of stuff happening,
yeah,
right? And this idea that, to me, bear markets really bring up the visualization of I plant a seed and
yeah,
it looks like nothing's happening at all, right? It might even look like that. Like usually when you plant a plant, you transplant it, it actually looks like it's doing shittier, right? It
yeah,
starts to wither, it starts to get like kind of crippled and gets weaker, and you're like, I hope you're going to make it. But under the ground, all of the roots are permeating in there. All the microorganisms are coming together. So much is being done under the surface, so that when the thing does start to go and run fast, it goes with a lot of momentum because all of the work that was done under the surface is now able to be put to use so that when it wants to create fruit, it has way more ability to absorb nutrients, to absorb water, to interact with the soil organisms. So I think with the bear market is like when the price goes down,
yeah,
it looks like the plant just died, right? Bitcoin died again, as they say.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But under the surface, things are being built, right? When you're onboarding 100,000 new customers a day as a company, you cannot build. You cannot. You're just trying to not explode.
yeah,
When you're not onboarding anyone, because no one really cares about Bitcoin because they think it died, you can build such stronger roots. You can educate. You can have the discussions with your board. You can do all these things. You can talk to your family. You have time. There's not a mania. So that the next time there is a wave of adoption where people get hyped about it, it's just got such a better resilient root ball on that plant that it's like unstoppable and will, like the plum trees I have now, it is the picture of abundance. There are so many plums. There's enough for the birds and the bees and me, and enough to decompose in the soil to replenish the
nice.
tree. But it only happens by allowing the roots to grow and accept that nothing really looks like it's happening, but it is. So I think if people take that mindset, it's like, well, I want to get more sats as the roots are building, because I know those sats are going to be much more solidly grounded
Yeah,
when the world starts to realize this. Um, and another, this is from before, but I just remembered it. The idea that only humans really look into the future and save for the future. It's like, I live in Canada. There's squirrels here, which are literally
mhm,
just these little cuter rodents than rats, but they're still rodents. And this time of year, they're gathering nuts and they're
yeah,
burying them, and they're burying them for winter. And it's funny that I noticed low time preference tendencies in squirrels,
yeah,
because they're like, times are going to be hard. So I'm going to bury these nuts now so I can come back to them later, because I'm not going to be able to get any later. And I think we need to be more like squirrels. I think,
yeah,
hard times are
for sure.
coming. Let's bury some nuts. Let's buy some sats and secure them so that we have some so that we have some resources when times are tough, right? It's like, it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, no, no, this is a great, great metaphor with planting the the tree, and how there is a lot of work going on while we
Yeah.
are not really seeing it because it's happening underground in the root system. Yeah, so this is very applicable to the Bitcoin, market, and how people do it. you know I know, for example, right now with on Safedin's business, we are rebuilding the whole infrastructure, the website, the courses platform, the forum, like payment processing, e-commerce systems, all of that, logistics, supply chain for the hardcover books. So like, yeah, and
You're building the
you
roots.
don't really see it because it's like in construction right now.
Right.
I mean, soon it's gonna be visible. It's just, yeah, yeah, each time you get new wave of adoption, you need, again, it's like almost you need these bear markets. You need the price to go down, significantly, in order to rebuild, to build the infrastructure to onboard 10x more people.
Right.
Because I know that, for example, I mean, it's so practical. Like, we launched this current Safeedin's website in November of 2020.
What is the
just,
website? Just so people know if they're listening.
yeah, safeedin.com. So
Perfect.
so basically we launched that, and I remember we launched it just on a brink of the when Bitcoin broke its 2017 all-time high. So it was like literally 6-7 months after the halving, in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So we all kind of knew it's just, any day now it can break the all-time high, and then it's, you can literally feel the energy. It's like, yeah. So
it's like there's a giant ball stuck underwater. People are holding
exactly,
it, and then as
exactly.
soon as
Just
something
any
slips,
moment it's gonna explode. So I remember this, when it literally, broke the all-time high. It's literally just starting to pump, literally on a daily, weekly basis. So, but on the other hand, we like there is a limit on how much your infrastructure that you have built and prepared for this breakout moment, how much it can, actually support, and how much it can contain. And I knew, I mean, we were barely like hanging by a thread, with the just configuration of the website, all of the different stuff that we had in the background. We kind of rushed it a little bit, the launch. But I know that, in the next bull market, which can be, 10 times more intense than the last one was, this current configuration couldn't take it. Like, we would have, the website go down. Just, everything will break down. It's
have the
not,
capacity.
yeah, it would be too much. So it's almost, and I really think that I don't see fiat just collapsing like this, and Bitcoin just, mooning, literally overnight.
I don't either.
Hard for me to yeah. I really think we are just going to continue these adoption cycles that are driven by the economic fundamentals of Bitcoin halving. I mean, I don't think that the 4-year cycle is dead. I don't subscribe to the idea of super cycle. I think we are still going to have, run-ups that will follow after the halving,
And
so,
the overexuberance, I don't think will ever end. I really don't think, like, the traders that LARP in, not LARP in, ape in.
Sorry, yeah.
Get my meme words wrong. The traders that jump in, it just means that, like, there will always be leverage behind these exuberant phases. And, like, if you compare each cycle to the previous one, each one is a super cycle because it's much larger than the previous one. But I think, in biology, they have this notion of punctuated equilibrium, where there's like equilibrium and then boom, something happens and then you find a new equilibrium. It sorts itself out. I think we're forever going to go through increases in punctuated equilibrium, where there's a bump, then we find our space, and it can be a little bit messy because all the leverage piles in, all the leverage unwinds, we find the new equilibrium, we build resilience, we build capacity, and then boom, there's another punctuation. So I don't think that'll ever end, because, until Bitcoin has consumed everything, right? Until infinity divided by 21 million, which might take humanity's lifetime, right? I think we're always going to be there. And I actually find it to be, one of the biggest things that came to mind when you're talking about these people considering, oh, should I do fiat? When should I trade? Blah, blah. Misdirected energy.
Yeah,
think of
definitely.
how much energy you would be able to conserve and direct in better areas. And even the protests you opened with, it's like, think of if all those people took the energy that they put into standing up for what they believe in, well-intentioned, they just don't understand the dynamics. Imagine that was put into them really learning about Bitcoin and helping their families about Bitcoin. There's just so much energy that's being pissed away that if it was focused, like laser eye focused on Bitcoin, would be put to such better use. And I think all of our individual challenge is, how can we conserve our energy and focus it on what matters? And when we start to realize how much Bitcoin matters, I think the natural thing, you look at Saylor, the change he made recently, you look at Jack, my life, your life, we've all come to this acceptance that the focus should be Bitcoin. Like it changes everything else. It's the solution to half the problems in the world. That is where we need to focus our energy. And every time a group of people realize that, it pushes Bitcoin to a new punctuated equilibrium. And so I don't foresee that stopping. And and I don't need to try and trade it. I just need to sit with it and know that I've made the right choice. The minute I started opting out of fiat, I've made the right choice. I just need to keep making good choices.
Yes. And it's like, and if we continue, if we continue, let's just say there is not going to be this sudden collapse of fiat and sudden hyper Bitcoinization, where Bitcoin is going to go to $100 million literally over a week, and fiat is going to go to hyperinflation literally over a week. Let's say that's not going to happen. If that's not going to happen, we're going to continue seeing this cycle, big pumps and then big drops in Bitcoin's purchasing power. True. So if we are going to continue seeing this wave, well, we should learn how to ride this wave, how to take advantage of it,
live in alignment with it.
Exactly. And I'm arguing the way to learn how to ride it is to embrace it fully, right? Don't try to hold on to fiat in order to have easier ride, because you are not going to get easier ride. The more fiat you hold, the higher your fear of missing out is going to be in the bull market period, right? You're going to have this feeling that you missed out on stacking during the bear market, and you're going to start basically feel that you need the price is going to run away from you. And you need to understand, during this up pumps in the price, you need to be spending your money, because you want to have lower expenses during the inevitable drop in purchasing power.
You even mentioned prepaying things. I love that.
That's when you prepay for your life expenses. That's when you pay. This is what I was talking about in the last episode. Pay now, consume later, right? That's the way you think on a Bitcoin standard. On a fiat standard, you are trying to consume now and pay later for it. Right?
That's so true. I never realized that.
On a Bitcoin standard, you are paying now to consume later. Right. So I know, for example, in the next bull market, which I think is going to be after proper big bull market, is going to be after 2024 halving, some way after that. I know that then, let's say it's going to be in, winter 2024. I know that I'm going to be buying my vacation for winter of 2025 in winter of 2024. So I'm going to be prepaying a year in advance for my winter vacation. I'm going to be getting discount, because I'm paying right now. If you want to go to a vacation next year, you will get much better price for it than if you are just last minute booking, airplane flight. So the farther away you are buying something, the more discount you get. This is the nature of money. This is, money is worth more now than in the future. Thus, if you pay for something now that you will consume in the future, you're going to get discount on it. So you're basically, or if you are renting your property, like the apartment that you are living in, you will get a discount most likely if you offer your landlord to prepay a year or 2 years of rent in advance. So So you are basically prepaying. That's what you should do. You should spend more at a higher rate in the bull market.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that if your strategy is to hedge the volatility of Bitcoin by holding some amount in fiat, however much you think you are comfortable with,
you're preventing
you will
that.
inevitably miss on the opportunity to increase your spending and prepay for your future expenses in the Bitcoin bull market. So that's what's going to happen if you hold fiat, and that's bad. I mean, you're not going to die because of it. Like you will still make it, but you will miss out this natural thing that will come to you natural. Like it's not like you need to think about it a lot. You just see that you have been saving. Let's say you have been saving for a vacation during the bear market, and suddenly bull market starts, and in a couple of months your saving for your vacation has increased in purchasing power 10 times. And the more that it increased, let's say it increased 10 or 15 times, you know that this is not gonna, like, this is short-lived. This is now gonna any moment gonna start dropping down. So you are incentivized to capture this big increase in purchasing power by spending it, going to a vacation, but even better, just paying for the future vacation now and then consuming it later.
Yeah.
So this is, I mean, and again, in the bear market, you are just, it's very easy. You're just, okay, now you are more focused on increasing your inflow, right? If there is any way you can increase your inflow, there usually is a way to either get more productive at your job, or get another client, or just learn some things, invest in yourself, your capacity, all of your career skills, let's say, so you can start making some more purchasing power coming in, and you are just then tightening up your spending so that you can increase your savings rate. Because remember, I mean, this is so natural for me, but I know that when I speak with Bitcoiners about this, they suddenly get it. Like, yeah, right now, I'm earning more sats, right? Than I was 6 months ago, let's say, 3 times more sats. But my spending, my usual spending is also 3 times higher. But the thing is, my delta between my income denominated in sats and my outflows denominated in sats is larger, because I have adjusted my spending behavior, because I recognize that we are in the bear market. My purchasing power is dropping, my savings rate is dropping in purchasing power. So I'm incentivized to increase the savings rate. And it's opposite in the bull market. And the traders, and you said it, Nick, perfectly. When you are holding on to fiat, you are literally practically trying to trade. Traders,
you're trying to time a trade.
Yeah, you are trading, and the traders are trying to do what I'm now explaining. They are trying to buy Bitcoin when it's low, when it drops down. They are trying to sell. Bitcoin Tina is saying that he is going to rebalance his position, right? He's going to buy when it drops down, buy Bitcoin when it drops, and then when it goes above his portfolio allocation, then he's going to sell some. But I'm just saying, yes, in theory, if your behavior, if your emotions can be 100% shut off, and you can just act on your logical brain, your mathematical plan, well, yeah, in that case, go ahead, do it. I cannot do it, and I don't know anyone who can actually do it in a real practical sense. But I know that I can do it on a full Bitcoin standard, because on a full Bitcoin standard, like, there is absolutely no way that someone who has, let's say, similar income that I have and similar spending that I have, and he holds fiat, and he's trying to have like fiat position and Bitcoin position in order to hedge the volatility, because whatever, there are many reasons why he thinks he should do that. I can guarantee that his savings rate is lower than mine, denominated in Bitcoin, 100%, because he is like, naturally, I see many people, I would argue majority of Bitcoiners right now are bearish. They think Bitcoin is going to drop down to $12,000 right now. And they think that they will catch, they will buy it when it drops to $12,000. They are saving, they have dry powder. they are thinking that. And I'm not saying it's impossible that it's going to drop down. My thinking, my pretty high conviction is that we have seen the bottom in June. But even if we dip down to $12,000 and stay there for a week, I think that they are going to get scared even more to buy. They will think that
they'll be like, it might go to 6. I'll hold it, and then it goes up to 100, and they're like,
go
shit.
to 0. And I know, for example, that if it drops to 12K, in my case, I am not like, I will just rebalance my budget, and I will have the income coming in that I have already worked for. That's gonna be, that's just gonna fulfill it's gonna be even more sats. I'm gonna be tightening up even more my spending, and I'm gonna go, crazy with work. If it drops to 12K, I would be like all over the place. I would really, try to do even more work to try to stack even more. But and they would probably get scared. And then again, on the way up, you get like, you're holding fiat, you're on the way up, you feel fear of missing out, and then you start buying. But that's not when you should start buying. You should start selling on the way up. If you are a trader, if you follow your logic, you should be buying when it's low, selling when it's high, then buying when it's low, then selling when it's high. That way you will end up with much more BTC. That's what these guys are arguing about. Right. But I'm saying, yes, in theory, but the problem is you cannot do it in practice. You get scared, or you get you get so enthused about Bitcoin going to the moon. Like, it's so funny. All these guys were just,
I think it's ego. A lot of it. It's like they think they can predict the future better than most other people, and they're going to get rich off it.
And I'm not saying that they cannot. Like, right. I'm still like, it's not that you cannot. You can. I think you can predict. With like, it's like weather forecast. Yes, you can predict that tomorrow there is 95% chance that it's going to rain. Okay, and it's fine. Like, I understand that's possible. You can predict, with high amount of confidence what's going to happen with Bitcoin 1 day from now, or 1 week from now, 1 month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. You can predict it. The problem is, the farther away you go to the future, the higher this error range it is, right? So you are you can only say, I think Bitcoin 1 year from now is going to be between, I don't know, maybe $20,000 and $80,000, maybe, So somewhere in between. But it's the problem is you are trying to act on it while fighting your impulse, because your impulse is always, your people's impulse is always that they are trying to extrapolate what has been happening in the whatever arbitrary amount of time they've been looking in the past, in the future. So if they are looking at the last 6 months and they see Bitcoin dropping down in the last 6 months, they think, okay, it's going to continue dropping down. So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna buy Bitcoin now. I'm going to save up my fiat so that when it drops down even more, then I'm gonna be able to buy more Bitcoin, and vice versa. If they see Bitcoin pumping in the last 6 months, whoa, next 6 months it's gonna continue pumping. So yes, you can fight your natural, your emotional kind of this pattern recognition that humans all have embedded. You can fight it. You can waste your energy fighting it while holding on to fiat, and still most of the time you're going to be wrong, because you are going to make decisions wrong. Like, very big danger is that you're going to get too bullish in the bull market. You're going to get FOMO'd in, and then you're going to start leveraging up. You're going to take out loans, debt to buy more Bitcoin because you think you missed out your chance to accumulate, and so on. And so this is why you go on a full Bitcoin standard. And
full clarity.
I'm just saying it's completely different. Like your skill set goes to completely different direction. And to come back to the time preference, this is the best. I think this is really the most effective way to work on your time preference going down. Because yes, your time preference does go down when you learned about Bitcoin. You are dollar cost averaging. You now see that you can save for the future. You know, but when you are literally spending Bitcoin every day, so every day. This morning when I was at my hairdresser, I was on the ATM. I took out 20 euros from the ATM. I know exactly how much it was in satoshis. I know how much it cost, how much my haircut cost. So I literally have all these micro decisions every day in my spending, all my micro spending decisions that are always working. Basically, they are contributing to building out my overall time preference, right? So it's not like I know that. So I mean, it's very, very useful because again, I see many people in Bitcoin right now. I have to talk about it because I see it's a bear market. It's like currently this is actual. It's actuality. So I see many people right now. They are saying that they are trying to increase their dollar cost. Like some Bitcoiners are saying, okay, now I'm going to buy the dip. I'm going to increase my dollar cost average portion because that way I will end up with more satoshis. And that's also not really how this thing is going to work, because it's not about the nominal amount of sats. Okay, it's not about how much Bitcoin you're holding. It's about your purchasing power. Right. So it's very important because in 2010, when Laszlo Hanets bought 2 big pizzas for 10,000 BTC, he paid 10,000 BTC for 2 pizzas, which was around $30. Okay, but we are thinking about it wrong, really, because that was in 2010, 10,000 sats was $30.
10,000 Bitcoin.
10,000 Bitcoins. Today, $30 of purchasing power is what? Maybe 100,000 sats or something. So like you are now spending, you are both earning millions of sats, or tens of millions of sats every month, let's say, and you are spending millions or tens of millions of sats. So if Laszlo Hanets was on a full Bitcoin standard back in 2010, he would be earning millions of BTC per month.
Right.
And he would spend millions of BTC just on a regular, he would be average middle class, someone who has his expenses. But because Bitcoin's purchasing power was so low, he would have a lot, he would literally throw Bitcoins around like we are throwing sats around. Someday in the far future, when we are, I would say that you would say, look, I used to make, I don't know, 500 million sats per year, and I would spend 350 million sats per year.
People will say that's absurd.
People would say, you are crazy. How could you do it?
That will sound like Laszlo.
Yeah, you would sound like. So I'm just trying to say, the idea that you want to have more BTC than you had yesterday is wrong, because you don't need that. Because if that was true, the best way to achieve that is to just stack 1 Satoshi every month, and next year stack 2 Satoshis every month. And
Right.
yeah, you will have more satoshis than you started with. But
You're
that's not the
ignoring the
point.
important part, which is your purchasing power.
Which is your purchasing power. Like it doesn't matter that you have more satoshis than you had when you started, when you have dust of satoshis. You want to have
Right.
more purchasing power overall. So
Yes.
you want to denominate, you want to recalculate what you are earning. Let's say you are earning $50,000 a year. You want to, so that's like, let's say that's 2.5 BTC a year, 250 million sats a year. How much are you spending in a year, right? So you are spending, I don't know, $45,000 a year. So you have, basically, you are spending 225 million sats a year. So your savings rate is 25 million sats a year. Now, can you increase this savings rate? Yes, you can. You have to earn more and spend less. The more you earn and the less you spend, the higher your savings rate is going to be. That's how you need to think about it.
So on a Bitcoin standard, it's not about stacking sats, it's about stacking purchasing power. It's
Exactly.
kind of what you're
then,
saying.
And then the interesting thing that's only present in the Bitcoin standard, that's not present in the fiat standard, is that once every 4 years, you get this huge increase in purchasing power, usually 10x, your savings, whatever you have saved. Let's say you saved, let's say you saved $5,000 of purchasing power every year, in this 4-year cycle. So you save $20,000 of purchasing power. Suddenly, you have $200,000 of purchasing power.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your BTC number is. You have $200,000 of purchasing power. It's easier for us to calculate what $200,000 can buy, rather than what 1 BTC can or 10 BTC can buy. For most of Bitcoiners, it's still easier to think in terms of fiat as unit of account, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you use as unit of account, because at the end of the day, you can, the purchasing power is purchasing power. Either you can buy this house or you cannot buy this house. Doesn't matter how much sats.
That's
can
the
you
decision.
buy it? Right? So it's so easy. So the thing is, once your savings increase, right, 10x, now you still have to think about how, like, you will likely, let's say you have saved up $20,000 over 4 years, you go suddenly to $200,000, but it's high likelihood that it's not going to stay $200,000 next 4 years. It's probably going to drop 70 or 80% down.
Yep.
Which is, your $200,000 will go back to maybe 50K,
Sure.
So
spend it when your purchasing power is high.
Yeah. Now you need to think, okay, I have $200,000. What can I do with this money, with this savings that I have, given that it's probably going to drop significantly in the next couple of months? What can I do to lower my expenses so that they have higher savings rate in the next 4 years? Can I prepay my rent? Can I buy a new car if I need a new car? Can I prepay my vacations? Can I buy half a beef and put it in a freezer? Can I replenish my wardrobe? Can I do whatever? What can I do? And you really need to think about it. It's not so easy. I mean, people think it's easy to spend money. Yes, it's easy to spend money if you're just burning money. But if you are trying to spend money in a wise
intentionally,
way,
wisely and intentionally, is very hard.
Exactly, over timeline. This is where time preference becomes very practical, because you sit down, you write a timeline, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and you are looking at your income, you are looking at your outflows, right? You are looking at your savings rate, your projected savings rate, and you are trying to increase your savings rate in the future with the money that you have right now, that you have saved up in the last 4 years. That's how it works. This is, it maybe sounds complicated. Maybe I'm not so skilled in communicating. I'm learning how to communicate this.
This is how we hone it. And actually, one thing I wanted to say is, I want to be sensitive with your time, because I know you got the seminar.
Yeah.
I think we should do a whole, maybe even episode number 6, because I'm going to be there next time we do this. Sure. Why don't we just dedicate it towards starting from the very starting at a 5-year-old level? How does one what does the balanced budget look like? What
Yes,
does a
yes, we have to
simple
do
budget
this.
look like? Like whatever
Yes,
we record, I'll send you the footage because I'm sure you can plug this into a lot of places. Why don't we do that for Orange
yeah,
Pillars number 6? Because I think it's going to be extremely valuable,
yeah,
not only to people who are ready today, but the
yeah,
idea that we can crystallize that
yes,
into a piece of content which anyone can use at any time and we
yeah,
can look back on. So if we do it again next year, we can kind of upgrade it and iterate it. So I'm going to write that down. And then I just had 2 things and then we'll kind of close it up because I know it's
yes,
getting a bit later. Number 1, to all the traders out there, working with complex models and deep knowledge to try and, buy low, buy the dip. What happens if the Saudis buy $50 billion of Bitcoin? As Michael Saylor says, all your models get
yeah. Everything is
destroyed.
destroyed. Yeah,
So that's a risk. And then, back to
exactly.
the thing that you were talking about we are innately emotional creatures. Like this is not something, it's not an option, right?
Yeah,
I read a quote last week that I think was beautiful and very suitable here. It's very hard to change your emotions,
yeah,
right? It's much easier to change your perspective. And what
exactly.
you've done is
Yeah,
not had to deal with the emotions because your perspective negates the need for those emotions to come up, right? Like you don't have to battle fear if the perspective you're taking is that I am making the best choice for me and I don't have to worry about all the nonsense. So I think there's probably some wisdom there where it's like change your perspective and try and instead of fighting your emotions. And you do
yeah,
that by getting radical clarity. I think changing your perspective is literally take some fucking Windex, go to the mirror, wipe off the dust completely, then you have a good clear perspective where you don't have to get upset when things happen because it actually you can have ease. We
yeah.
all want ease.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then, like, it's not like I'm not feeling any emotions. Don't get me wrong. I still feel emotions. I think most people will feel emotions regardless. We are human beings. We
Yeah.
have this. This is a part of us. But the difference is that this way, when you're on a full Bitcoin standard, like when you see huge drop in purchasing power, yes, you will feel uncomfortable although just for a couple of moments
Sure.
until you rebalance the budget, which can come literally in 3 minutes. But this uncomfortable feeling that you have is literally working in your favor. It's working in
Yes.
your best interest because
Pushes you to earn more.
forces you to earn more. And
Interesting.
it's just like it's if we didn't feel any fear, right? Like we could be killed with, a car could kill you when you get out of the door. Like you are not gonna be like stupid crazy person who is just gonna walk in the middle of the road where the cars go 60 miles an hour.
Yeah,
No,
people
you
who
are
don't feel
afraid
fear
that the
don't live
car is
very
gonna
long.
hit you. Exactly. So you're not gonna make it very long without the emotion of fear. It's just that the fear, like the fear that you feel on a full Bitcoin standard is just like the fear that you are feeling towards a car that's driving on the street. You know what you need to do, right?
Yes.
You are not going to walk in the middle of the road, right? You will walk on the sideways, right? You will stay away from the big car that can hit you and break your bones or whatever, kill you. And that's what you do. Or if you are literally, let's say, the type of fear, or let's okay, that's maybe crazy example, but let's say you are living in a more kind of remote area where there are, I don't know, there is a wood close and there are maybe a bear coming, there is a bear that's roaming around. Like if you see the bear and you are close to the house, you're probably gonna run away, or do something. You're not just gonna whatever, ignore the bear, and bear is very angry and hungry and in the mating season or whatever. It's like you don't want to. That's the type of fear that's going to protect you.
Yeah.
So the fiat fear, the debt slavery fear that people are feeling, is a fear that's always kind of it's somewhere here.
It's
It's almost like
non-specific. That's the dangerous part.
non-specific. It's not, there is no big bear, big
Yeah.
lion that's after you. There is no visual representation where you can focus your energy and then do something to get out of the danger.
Yeah.
It's constantly just enveloping you, and it's so insidious, so bad. You have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
When you get rid of the last fiat balance that you have, you get rid of this type of fear.
Yeah.
And then you're just, you're fully alive. You can just, you're aware what's going on. You are not denying the fact that your purchasing power is fluctuating, tremendously sometimes, but you are at peace because, as you said in the very beginning, there is a certainty in Bitcoin as a protocol. So you always know. So what I like to do when I'm kind of when I need some, let's say, reinforcement in my conviction, because I'm on a full Bitcoin standard, there is not much more that I can do to increase my conviction even more. But sometimes if I feel that I need to do that, I just open up simple mempool, mempool.space. I just look at how the blocks are coming in, how this beautiful machine is just working, TikTok next block, as Bitcoiners like to say. You just see next one after another block.
That's your anchor. It's like your anchor that there is certainty, and it's not. I'm not dreaming this. I don't have to worry. It's like it's happening whether I do anything or not. That gives you peace.
I just spent a couple of minutes looking at this marvelous thing, and I see, whatever happens, Bitcoin is just going to produce next block, doesn't care at all. Like all of this, like I was listening to FOMC meeting last night. Our Nick Bhatia, he's great Bitcoiner. If someone wants to learn about what's going on in the macro world, they should subscribe to the Bitcoin Layer.
He wrote Layered Money too, right?
Yeah, Layered Money book. It's excellent. He was also a guest on the Bitcoin Safety seminar. Great guy. Perfect information. They held Twitter Space last night when there was a FOMC meeting. Fed was deciding, are they going to raise rates 75 basis points or 100 basis points?
Some old dude told us what money was worth. It's so
exactly.
It's so goofy.
Yeah, but I was listening to it, and I forgot what I was. Yeah, so I was listening to it, and no matter what, like you could see literally, this was my first time that I was literally looking at the Bitcoin's price during that meeting, right? So the moment they announced the rate hike, you could see, the volatility spiked in all markets, up, down. Bitcoin was trading at 19,500 and then suddenly dropped, in a second to 18,500. Then in a couple of seconds went back to 19 and then back to 18,600. It's like
traders sold, stackers stacked. And it's like,
but it was just very, spiking. It's fascinating to look at, and not just on Bitcoin, on all the markets around the world. And like it's like an earthquake, And I know that
a tremor.
Like I was walking, listening to the Twitter Spaces, and I mean I was enjoying, my slow walk. The sea was breeze, very very nice. The smell of salt and so on, peaceful. Calm, quiet, but I know that there was many, probably thousands of people who were stressing out about this craziness, just literally going crazy about what's going to happen. They and I know that like Bitcoin didn't care. Like it just mined its blocks. Everything works. So so that's always, you can always come back to this stone cold realization that Bitcoin is here. There's pretty much nothing that nobody can do to make it go away, unless you think internet is going to go away tomorrow. Like if you think about that, like good luck to you. I mean, you should live your life thinking that that internet is going to be tomorrow here, thus Bitcoin is going to be tomorrow. So like that's it. Like
choose to live with
really
ease.
Easy. Yeah, this gives you tremendous amount of peace. It's really like, and if you want even more peace, then you just go deeper into technical, how Bitcoin really works. Then you will clearly see that nobody can mess around with it. Nobody can stop it. And if nobody can stop it, it's just going to continue monetizing it. And if it's going to continue monetizing it once every 4 years, unless you have sudden 50%, basically you would have to have the amount of people, the amount of demand to hold Bitcoin basically needs to drop in half in order for the price, for the purchasing power to stay the same. So, and I'm just seeing Bitcoin's demand for Bitcoin is just slowly increasing.
Yep.
And if it stays the same, or if it continues to slowly increase, or even if the demand decreases, but it decreases less than 50% of the total people who are holding Bitcoin,
it's going up.
It's going up. So it's like, I mean, that will soothe your soul if ever you get afraid of the Bitcoin's purchasing power drop. But really, you really don't get afraid when you are on a full Bitcoin standard and you have income coming in. That's, I mean, of course, that's important, but I think all people should. I don't believe in retirement, for example. Maybe that's a topic.
That's a conversation for next time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we are close to the end.
That's 2 hours. God, 2 hours flies. So everyone listening, thank you for being here. We hope you enjoyed that. If you want to donate to Rab Orange Pilling efforts, you can use the wallet address in the YouTube link. If you enjoyed the content, the way we understand that people are listening and enjoy this content is by sending sats value for value through Fountain. Fountain is an amazing app. You can literally get paid to listen to this. If some of those sats that you got paid, if you deem this conversation of value, you can boost or stream some sats for this conversation. And we're grateful for every sat that comes in and for every listener that listens. So thank you for being here, Pavao. Thanks for taking the time. Stick around for 20 seconds after I'll end the recording. And we'll catch you all next month. And next month will be all about living on a Bitcoin standard and what it means to create a budget for yourself so that you have a framework to use within the context of living on a Bitcoin standard. So we'll see you next month. Thanks for being here.